students are gone, but you are still here. And we know how you feel because you are done. But you have so much work to do to get ready for tomorrow. Good afternoon, podcast listeners everywhere. Welcome to After the Bell, a Stunt Brothers production. A podcast that gets inside the life of a teacher and provides a wellness guide for being prepared to take on this most challenging of professions. I'm Martin Stuvel.
And I'm Roy Hunt. And we share your pain, having taught a combined 70 years. The guarantee of this podcast is to make you laugh, make you think, and give you at least one little nugget that you can use in the classroom. So get out your marking, organize your supplies, or just pour yourself a coffee.
I want something stronger.
And listen, engage, and interact with After the Bell, a podcast for you, the hard-working, dedicated teacher who wants 3 lesson plans, free advice, and a free meal.
Okay, Roy, but I'm not paying for anything more than McDonald's. Well, Mr. Hunt, here we are on our very first episode of our brand new podcast, and we're making it happen. This is very, very exciting.
That's right. We've gone from all talk and no action to all action.
We are ready for blast off.
Ready for blast off.
This is awesome. Yeah, it's good.
It's great. But before we start, shouldn't you be in class right now?
And what are you doing sitting here? Shouldn't you be in class?
I should tell our listeners the reason why we're not in class is because we both had the privilege and the opportunity to retire.
Yes, we did.
We retired in June of this year.
Wow, we were lucky to do that. Very, very happy.
Very lucky.
After a few years of teaching.
After quite a few years of teaching. I believe, if my math is correct, we've taught for 70 years combined.
70 years? Roy, that makes me feel 95 when you say it like that.
Well, I can tell you that I have felt like I was 95 a few of the days while I was teaching.
Probably 100 some days.
Or
right?
some, yes, like that.
But, Mr. Hunt, you are actually back in the classroom despite retirement. Tell us about that.
Yes, I am. I was rehired by our district 2 weeks ago. I have a handle as a professional TTOC, or a professional teacher on call. And I have done a few classrooms, but I've tried 2 things that put me sort of out of my comfort zone just to test things. I've done band and I've done kindergarten. I did half a day of kindergarten. I can say I actually enjoyed it, but I don't think I could have done a whole day, and my hat goes off to all those kindergarten teachers out there.
Absolutely, for sure. That's exciting. I might join you. I have a few things that are on my plate right now. I love my garden, and that's my tranquil place. But I'll see how you do, and I might actually join you in the TTOC world. We'll see.
That would be good to have you.
But we should tell the listeners a little bit about ourselves. We're here. We have this podcast. We have a lot of words, but people need to know some of our experience and where we came from. So I think every episode we should bring a little bit of that background in. So why don't we go right back to the beginning and find out what brought Mr. Hunt into this world of education.
Okay. Well, I started out as a geological engineering technician. I got a full-time job working in the Northwest Territories in a silver mine.
This is teaching?
No, it is geology.
Okay. You're a geologist to start.
Geologist.
I see.
And I was got the job at the silver mine at Great Bear Lake. I spent 2 years underground. And after 2 years underground, I realized that I needed to meet people.
Let me out.
Let me out.
Wow.
And so I enrolled into the Queen's Faculty of Education, where I did my teaching degree. I got out, eager to teach, to find out there are no jobs in Ontario.
No, it was tough at that time.
It was very, very difficult.
Yeah.
But I was able to get a job for 1 year, a 1-year contract in northern Quebec in a community school. Oh. And the community school taught students from kindergarten to all the way up to grade 12. And my job was to teach grade 4 and computer to the high school students in the school.
Wow, what a challenge. So grade 4 up to grade 12 you taught?
Up to grade 12.
Oh, I see. Fantastic.
Yes. From there, I decided that I wanted to go overseas, and I ended up getting a position teaching English in junior high schools in Chiba City, Japan.
Oh, across the ocean goes Mr. Hunt. Wow.
Yes. My initial goal was to go for 1 year and then into Japan and then cycle tour through Europe. But in the end, I loved being in Japan. I loved the people. I loved the culture. I loved teaching English as a second language. And my 1 year stretched into 4 years. 4 years.
Wow.
After my 4 years in Japan, I went back to Ontario to visit my family in London, Ontario. I bought a car and made the decision to go west. I felt the calling.
Go west, young man.
Yes. But I went west in the middle of February.
That young man doesn't know Canada, does he?
In the middle of February, out to British Columbia, where I landed in Vancouver and ended up getting a teaching job in North Vancouver. And one of my first TTOC experiences, or my first teacher on call experience, was in your classroom at Lonsdale.
That's right. There we are. Like 30 years this coming February or March, whenever you were there, you were in my class, and I remember the day very clearly. It's when we first met. I had other TOCs that year, but I hear and remember you very well, Roy. And there you were in your tie, looking very dapper, and we've formed a friendship and a bond ever since, and we've taught together, and we have a good, long history together.
We do.
Yeah.
And why don't you share a little bit about your history, about how you got into teaching?
Well, sure. And it's interesting when you talk about you started off in geology. My first degree was political science. And in fact, I was hoping to become a lawyer was my plan. And
What?
I applied to law school and education and wrote my LSAT. And then I got an acceptance from both education and law on the very same day.
So what did you do? Flip a coin?
Well, I had a quick decision and I made it right away. I knew that law was not for me. I have a political side for sure, and I certainly gravitate towards that sometimes. But I believe that if you want to change this world and make the world a better place, it's education and teaching. And that's always been where my heart is and always my heartfelt view of the world. And that's why I chose teaching. And I think teachers know and should know that they are in a profession where you do change the world. So I have not regretted it once that I chose education over law school. And then there I was working at Lonsdale and met you. And it was a challenging time. And in future episodes, I think we should bring back some of our challenges that we've had in our career and some of the positives, some of the negatives, some of the things. But I had a wonderful time in my first 6 years at Lonsdale Elementary, being a young teacher and working with those kids and at that school. So that's where we're at today.
That's fantastic.
Whoa, what's that sound?
That's today's nugget.
Tell us what these nuggets are that you talk about.
The nugget is the takeaway that our listeners get from each episode. Today's nugget is making space for yourself.
Yeah, and carving out time for yourself, because that's hard to do, right? And we want to somehow come up with an idea that you can take away, and it's something that works for you, that you can find in the day, not for everybody else.
When's the last time you scheduled something in your day plan just for you?
Yeah, what does a day plan usually be filled with, right? It's got marking, it's got lessons, it's got teacher appointments, it's got,
everything for everyone else.
But nothing for you. We want you to carve out time for yourself. Now, Roy, were there things you did in your career that you would find time for Roy Hunt?
At Ridgeway, we had this lovely space called the Refuge.
Oh, nice.
It was a green space that was out the back end of the school. It had chairs, it had a koi pond and plants. And on a sunny day, staff members would go out there. Oftentimes we would connect with each other and just have a wonderful time just sitting in the sun and decompressing.
Oh, I wish all schools had that. Wonderful.
I think all schools should have a green space like that. We also had the great opportunity of going for a community walk. We would eat our lunch maybe 10, 15 minutes. It didn't matter if it was raining or if it was sunny. And we would walk for 15 to 20 minutes. Oftentimes there were usually 3 to 4 staff members with us. We'd talk, we'd laugh, we'd just share some of our challenges and decompress. And that would get us ready for the afternoon.
Yeah, you're so right, because I think with this job, you're actually never done. You could be there till midnight every night and you wouldn't be done. So you have to accept that. You got to acknowledge you will not get it all done. However, you'll be done if you don't look after yourself.
That's
that's
right.
about carving time for you. I mean, I had a friend at this one school I was at, and he was a huge Bob Dylan fan, and he got me into Bob Dylan. And just 5 minutes a day, recess or lunch or before school, and he'd just play me a song, a Dylan song that he loved. And it was just this grounding little moment. It's not magic. It's not something you're going to find in some psychology booklet about how to fight your worries about the job and this and that. But it just grounded me, and it was like, hey, I can now do the other things that are going to happen, because we all are going to have 10 to 12 things happen that we have to deal with as teachers every minute of that day, right? Yeah.
Right.
So our nugget to you is to go to your day plan. In that day plan, write down, in addition to all those other things the day plan says about what you're doing for other people, what are you going to do for yourself today? Whether it's bring yourself in a special coffee, right? Whether it's take 5 minutes to read a novel that you just want to read and get into at lunchtime. Whether it's go for a walk, whether it's listen to music, any of those things. It's your time, but do that as part of your day plan. Have it built in.
That's right. Create space for yourself, and do not sacrifice that space for other things if you can help it.
Yeah.
Keep it as one of those commitments to your well-being, and it will help you out in so many ways.
It's so important because teachers are such givers, right? We're in this profession because we love to give. So our hand goes up. We volunteer for everything. I'll do that. I'll do that. I'll help you out. But then you get left behind sometimes because no one's thinking about you. And in the end of the day, you have to think about yourself, right? You can't expect the administrator to do it, the school district to do it, the politicians to do it. You have to think about yourself. And if you can start small, put it in your day plan. This is what I'm going to do today. Sound like a plan?
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, so we will have a website up and running. And these are places where we're going to have a place where you can actually share some of these things, right? Come in, give what you did. What was your nugget? What was your 5 minutes? What did you do for yourself today? And that will be a place that is part of the interaction that we expect and hope to happen with this podcast.
What's that sound?
What's that sound?
That's the making connections sound.
Making connections? What's that?
That's when we have discussions about topics of interest or guest speakers that come in and we talk with them.
Guest speakers. Yeah, I already have a bunch of ideas. We're going to have a superintendent on here, a trustee. They're coming in.
What?
Well, they might. I got to talk to them first, but hopefully.
All right. So anyways, after the discussions and after our guest speakers, I'm going to ask our listeners to do some homework.
Homework? I have spent my life moving away from giving kids homework, and now I'm going to sit with Mr. Hunt here, and he's going to give me homework?
Well, it's not really homework. What I would like our listeners to do is think about what was discussed, share their ideas, share some insight, and then put it onto our website.
Put it on our website, yes.
And then what we will have is a robust collection.
Robust. I like that word.
That's a good word. It's my word. A robust collection of ideas that everyone could read.
What a great idea. Wow. Man.
It's my idea.
Yeah. Finally, 35 years later, Roy gets a great idea. He's had many good ideas.
Okay. So now it's on to this week's Making Connections homework.
Okay. I'm worried about the homework, but I'm listening. I'll give you this.
So I would like to know what our listeners' simile or metaphor is for teaching.
Oh, I like that.
Okay.
Well, do you have one?
I have an example.
Okay.
Teaching is like building a car while you're driving.
Okay. How does that work?
Well, you start your trip and you realize you need to make some changes or modifications to your vehicle for the changing road conditions.
What kind of road trip do you go on?
Well, sometimes they're a little rough.
Okay. Well, I have one.
Okay, let's hear it.
Teaching is like falling out of an airplane without a parachute. Without a parachute.
No.
What?
Are you going to scare people away? Okay, we need teachers.
You want them to have a parachute all the way down.
You want them to have a parachute all the way down. Can you come up with something else?
We just had lunch, and I have an idea. It's connected to food. Okay. Teaching is like making a meal for 20 people. 10 are not hungry. 4 don't like anything you're offering. 3 are allergic. 1 is away, and 2 have already eaten. And then you have to write a report card on this meal and give it to Gordon Ramsay. How about that?
That's much better.
Okay. Well, thank you.
But there's room for improvement.
Okay. Well, I'm working on it. So maybe we can find some better ones out there. What do you think?
I think so. So for this episode, we would like you to write your simile, write your metaphor, and post it on our website.
And you'll find the details of that website at the end of this podcast.
That sounds like a great idea.
Sounds good. Okay. That's
right.
our homework for today. That's our Making Connections.
Well done.
Oh, that's that sound. Another weird sound for this podcast. Could be a new segment, I think.
What segment would that be?
It's called Detention Hall, in fact.
Oh, I spent some time there.
Oh, I can
in my
imagine.
childhood.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
Detention Hall is when we take a person or an idea that we think is kind of archaic or does not understand what it is to be a teacher and the challenge of the job, and we put that person or idea into Detention Hall and let them have a little time out to think about things, and maybe we allow a chance to educate them about this very challenging job.
Okay, what do you have for today?
Well, I have had experience in the past when you're at a family gathering and there's Uncle Harry
Uncle Harry.
or Aunt Betty.
Aunt Betty, she's
You know
yeah,
Aunt Betty,
she's something.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. And because our job is kind of open season when it comes to people having an opinion about it, right? I mean, I don't hear us in gatherings when we're with, say, a family member who's a doctor or a lawyer where people tend to have the same strong opinions as they do if they find out you're a teacher.
That's right. But, a lot of people have been in surgery, but it's because they've been put out by their doctor. They can't comment on the surgery.
Maybe that's the key, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I also think everyone had one teacher along the way that they didn't like, and they formed their
That's
opinion
right.
about the education system because of that person. My memory goes back to certain moments when you've had these family gatherings or just a get-together with friends where someone does have an opinion, and often to me it centers around the size of classes. And they go back to their childhood and talk about, well, in my day, there were 40 kids in a class. And I hear teachers now, they have 20 to 30. What is wrong with them almost, right?
That's right.
And I think they just do not understand the complexities of, first of all, the class today, but also thinking back to their time, I don't think the education system recognized the complexities of the class.
I agree. And I think one of the things, like, I can think back, I don't think I ever had, when I was in elementary school, I didn't ever have a teacher ask me about my lunch.
Right. Right.
I know that I had to sit at my desk, show my fingernails to see if they're clean.
Oh, wow.
And so show how clean my hands were. So I was judged on my personal hygiene.
Wow, you're
Right?
old.
I know, not that old.
But you're
But-
right. Right.
So
yeah.
So, and because that's the judgment. Now it's not the judgment that we have as teachers. It's the observations of what our students need. And while I believe that a good teacher would make those observations and know that maybe this student is kind of light today in their lunch or is really sleepy, and so there's a discussion that can happen with that. A good teacher would make those observations. But the expectation is now that we're going to address many of the issues that our school system and our school community and the educational system itself deem as being needed to be addressed by the teacher.
And they have become more complex, right? For sure.
Yes.
But also in that time, going back to Uncle Harry's class, imagine if you were a child with dyslexia in that class. Do you think your needs got met? You were given the worksheet and that was it, and you were called dumb because you couldn't read,
you were
right?
judged. You were
know?
judged on your performance.
Yes.
And now what we do is we look at the performance, and then we try to make observations of why this performance is on a worksheet is happening in a certain way. We have more experts available to us to identify those students. But the biggest challenge right now, which I think is the hardest, is having gone through COVID.
Right.
Is the many families suffered in silence socially and emotionally. And how do we address those needs? Because school attendance
It's really gone down.
has
right?
really dropped.
Yeah, it's a huge issue. So that's another difference that if you go back in time, that just wouldn't have been tolerated, right?
That's right, yeah.
But now we try to understand why are they coming late. So there's an understanding that we do that you can't do with a class of 40. And I think when someone comes up to you, Uncle Harry, Aunt Betty, whoever it is, and says something like that, you need to say back, well, then does that mean we go back to the way we taught in those years, right? When we didn't address those issues. And if you were dyslexic or you had anxiety, it was like, oh, too bad. It's
bad.
on you, right?
That's
I
right.
don't think
Yes.
most people would want to go back to that kind of education system.
No.
So unless you're willing to go back to that, if you embrace what we do today, which is to try to understand the diversity of the class and support the students, then you would also encourage the class sizes that we advocate in 2025.
Yes. And that is why
Yes.
Aunt Betty and
Uncle Harry.
should be in the detention hall.
Agreed. Oh, another sound. Tell us, Roy, what's this one about?
That's the Rearview mirror.
Oh, well, Mr. Hunt, what does that mean?
That is where we share historical facts, funny anecdotes, and special stories from our teaching careers.
You know, it's kind of like when you were talking earlier with your metaphor about teaching is planning a road trip. I guess it's kind of like driving. You're going forward, but to be safe, you have to look in the rearview mirror too and see where you came from.
That's right, but don't look too long. I've been driving with you.
Okay, Mr. Hunt, tell us about this week's rearview mirror.
Okay. Well, in the 1900s, a teacher's job was to keep the room neat and clean. You had to sweep the floor at least once a day. You had to scrub the floor at least once a week using hot soapy water. And then you had to clean the blackboards at least once a day and start a fire at 7 a.m. so that the room was warm for the students by 8 o'clock.
That's still an issue in today's classroom.
I've had pretty cold rooms.
Heat in schools, right?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
Yes.
You know, that also reminds me of Mr. P and the sand, Mr. P.
Yes, I remember Mr. P. We had a teacher at our school who came in on a weekend with a sheet of plastic and lumber and built a container on the floor to hold a truckload of sand, and he made a beach paradise for his students.
He was making a beach tropical paradise. Remember that?
That's right. And they're still finding sand on the floor today.
Oh, those kids loved that week, though. They were in Hawaii in their classroom. And that is a perfect time to say goodbye on our very first episode. Roy, this has been such a pleasure.
It's been amazing, and I can't wait until we do episode number 2.
Oh, yeah. Bring it on.
Yes.
Fantastic. You know, and I want people to know this is an interactive podcast. So go to our website. Let us know what we should talk about during our next episodes that are coming up. This podcast is organic, taking shape with each episode. Building resiliency for teachers everywhere.
That sounds great.
And our website is stuntbrothers.ca.
That's stuntbrothers.ca.
We will chat again.
After the bell.